Part 31. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 301. The day after Lu Zhang received the letter was the winter solstice. If you don't bring dumpling bowls during the winter solstice, your ears will fall off due to the cold and no one will care. The army canteen got half a pig and started working early in the morning, making dumplings stuffed with pork and cabbage. Feng Qingxiu also made a few white flour dumplings with her family at home. Lu Tianjun and Guan Yu both had a cough, so she replaced the pork stuffing with mutton stuffing. Mutton and cabbage are the best pairing. 2 parts mutton fat, 3 parts meat, 7 parts cabbage and green onions. It was a piece of fat lamb bought through Zhang Yuejin's back door with meat coupons. When she was chopping the stuffing, she quietly took out a piece of half-fat and half-lean mutton from the space and mixed it with it. She also mixed a little flour from the space into the white flour. Anyway, others can't see it. Since Zhang Yuejin and Wang Jiao got married, it has become much more convenient for Feng Qingxiu to buy things. She has tickets in her hand, which are sent by Huo Biding and also sent by Lu Zhang with a letter. Zhang Yuejin is killing pigs and sheep. What kind of meat does she want to buy? With Zhang Yuejin, just tell her and Zhang Yuejin will set it aside for her in advance. If she wants to buy other non-staple food, Zhang Yuejin will also help carry it back to Wanglu Brigade. After Feng Qingxiu waited for Lu Tianjun to boil the pot, she first put down a large pot of dumplings, took them out with a strainer and put them into a basin. She put the dumplings and basin into a food box with a lid, called Guanchang, and said, "Aiken, send it to Zhang He and the others, and come back as soon as possible." "Okay, Aunt Chue." Guanchang rubbed his eyes, picked up the food box and rushed out. Zhang He's house is close to the cowshed, just to the west of the cowshed. It is naturally further away from other homes in the production brigade than the Lu family. Feng Qingxiu took great pains to choose the homestead so that they would not be easily discovered. It was freezing cold, and we met no one along the way to Guancheng. Seeing a large pot of hot dumplings being brought out from the food box, Zhang He and Zhang Aria's eyes immediately turned red, but the younger children cheered and looked at the white and fat dumplings with salivation. "Dumplings, dumplings. Sister, white flour dumplings, fat ya." The youngest, held on to Zhang Aria's lapel. Guancheng smiled and said, "Zhang He, Aria, hurry up and put the dumplings into the bowl. I have to take the basin back." "Okay." Zhang He and Zhang Aria agreed and quickly put the dumplings into coarse porcelain bowls. Feng Qingxiu bought the coarse porcelain bowls and bamboo chopsticks at home. Guancheng returned home carrying an empty food box, and the second pot of dumplings had just come out of the pot, steaming white. Father Lu was sitting at the top, while Feng Qingxiu was handing out chopsticks. Lu Tianjun brought the last bowl of dumplings to the table and called to Guancheng, "Come here, Aiken, eat it while it's hot. It won't taste good when it's cold." Guancheng responded and sat down in his seat. They were not as delicious as the dumplings. Everyone was busy eating them, and there was no other sound on the table except the sound of chewing. Children have small stomachs, so Lu Tianzi, Guan Yu, and Feng Qingyun were full quickly and went down to the table to hold hands and go out to play, while Father Lu, Feng Qingxiu, Guancheng, and Lu Tianjun continued to chew slowly. When there was still one dumpling left in Feng Qingxiu's bowl, 3 children led an old man in his 50s in. "Sister, someone is looking for you." Feng Qingxiu looked up at the door, but she didn't recognize him, but she still put down the bowl and stood up. "Who is this comrade?" This old man is dressed like an authentic farmer, wearing a patched black cotton jacket, black cotton trousers with tied trouser legs, a pair of straw sandals on his feet, a cigarette bag on his waist, a baggage on his back, and a bronzed face. Wrinkled. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 302. Feng Qingxiu's attention was quickly attracted by the child in his arms. He was a boy who looked to be only about 2 years old. He had a big head and a small body, with a sallow face and skinny muscles. He was as dirty as if he had just rolled out of the mire. His appearance could be compared to Feng Qingyun when Feng Qingxiu had just crossed over. Another child who is extremely hungry in extreme poverty. The old man looked at the room full of young people and said sheepishly, "My name is Song Lao's Huan." "Uncle Song, do you have anything to do with me?" Feng Qingxiu asked, and then said hurriedly, "Please sit down first, and speak slowly if you have anything to say." Lu Tianjun quickly stood up and pulled the chair under his buttocks to Song Lao's Huan. Song Lao's Huan sat down with his hands and feet tied up, his eyes not daring to fall on the table, and he murmured twice and said, "I'm here to see Comrade Feng Qingxiu. Are you Feng Qing who sent money and food stamps to Song Dazu's family in our production brigade, Comrade Snow?" "Song Dazu?" Feng Qingxiu asked in confusion, and quickly remembered who Song Dazu was. He was a martyr, a soldier who died on the southwest border. While Lu Zhang was recovering at home, he sent money and stamps to his family members. The money was not much, 10 yuan, and the stamps were not much, just 10 kilograms of food stamps. Later, Lu Zhang returned to the army, and Feng Qingxiu continued to send mails to the address he left, once a month. After Song Dazu died, the state paid a certain amount of pension to his family, and also ordered the local area to take care of his family. She and Lu Zhang were just superfluous, but they still did their best. However, she never expected that Song Dazu's family would find her. Song Lishuan's surname is Song, which is obviously related to Song Dazu. Thinking of this, Feng Qingxiu said directly, "I am Feng Qingxiu. I did send money and tickets to Song Dazu's family in the past few months. Uncle Song, do you have anything to do with me?" Song Lao's Huan hesitated for a long time without saying anything, and finally sent the child in his arms to Feng Qingxiu. Feng Qingxiu looked into the child's innocent eyes and asked, "What do you mean?" "I'll tell you the truth," Song Lao's Huan gritted his teeth and stamped his foot, "this baby is Song Dazu's son. He is 4 years old this year. He has no serious name, just a nickname, Tank Zi. He died of starvation the year before last. Later, when I received the news of his father's death, his father didn't even come up and went with him. With his father's pension, the money and food stamps you sent, his mother could have survived by keeping him. Our production brigade received an order from above to provide his mother with rations according to the standard of strong laborers. Unexpectedly, his mother fell seriously ill in the autumn and was not cured. Our production brigade died soon after winter. A strong laborer only gets 200 kilograms of food a year. During the slack period, most of them have to go out to beg for food. No one can afford the tank and no one is willing to adopt him." Feng Qingxiu frowned slightly, "So you sent him to me?" Song Lao's Huan blushed, "I have no choice but to watch him starve to death, right? Many people are staring at the money and tickets you sent, but there is no one to adopt him. I have 7 sons. 4 of my 3 daughters starved to death. I couldn't even support my own family. How could I dare to add another mouth to the family? If this continued, my child would only die." I thought about it again and decided to go to the production team. After discussing with the party secretary, "You are the only one who sends money and tickets on time every month, and you are the only one who sends money and tickets to Gongza's family. You must be a good person. I brought Gongza to you, begging you to find a way out for Gongza. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 303. The more Song Lao's Huan talked, the more embarrassed he became, and his head dropped. People are poor and have short ambitions, but they have to be like this. Song Dazu was a martyr. The country awarded him an honorary title and was buried in the martyrs' cemetery. Who could bear to ask the martyrs' only son to starve to death? Who can afford the responsibility of their production brigade and the Song family? If it hadn't been for the famines of the past few years, the entire production brigade could feed him with just one mouthful, but now who is willing to give up that mouthful of food? The rice cooked in the pot is all pressed into grains. Gangsa does have an uncle, dear uncle. After the death of Gangsa's mother, I asked them to collect the money and tickets you sent. They got it this month. They went to the city to exchange for food, but before their own daughter starved to death, they refused to grab a handful of rice and boil it in a pot to save his daughter's life. When I found the jar, he was almost dying of hunger. After discussing with the branch secretary, I told his family to find a jar. Good people, after getting their consent, I brought the tank out. I didn't tell them that I was coming to see you. I was just afraid that they would come to you in the future, because you left your address in the letter and told the tank's family that if you have any difficulties, come to you. As Song Lao's Huan said this, he put down the jar, took off the shabby baggage on his back, opened it, took out a few letters and all Song Dazu's relics including the Medal of Honor, and handed them to Feng Qingxiu. The letter was indeed written by himself and Lu Jiang, and the handwriting was clear at a glance. If you have any difficulties, please come to her or something, but it was not written by her. She had not made a promise to the families of the martyrs. It should have been written by Lu Jiang before he returned to the army. She did not check what Lu Jiang wrote at that time. They have their comradeship, and writing such content is completely reasonable. However, facing Song Lishuan's entrustment, Feng Qingxiu was completely unprepared. Looking at Gangsa's innocent and pure eyes, she didn't know what to say. After thinking about it, she felt that nothing was appropriate. At this moment, she heard Song Lishuan's stomach growl, and Gangsa's eyes turned to the table. There are still some dumplings in the bowl that have cooled down even though I haven't finished eating. Song Lishuan's old face turned red immediately, and he said sheepishly, "Actually, I'm not hungry, just thirsty. I brought some cornbread with me, which the party secretary and my old woman had to collect with great difficulty. I had to eat on the way home. This I ate one every day for several days." Feng Qingxiu sighed, poured him a bowl of hot water, and asked Lu Tianjun to make dumplings for Song Lao's Huan. I had made several covered dumplings before, but only 2 covered dumplings were left in the pot. Father Lu suddenly said, "Bake some porridge for the child to nourish his stomach." Lu Tianjun responded and worked with Guan Cheng. Song Lao's Huan sat with the jar on his lap and waved his free hand towards Feng Qingxiu. No, it's not easy to eat dumplings during the winter solstice. I still have the wawadu I brought. It's all about the jar. You eat first and then talk after you finish." After listening to Feng Qingxiu's words, Song Lao's Huan waved his hand again. "That matter has not been settled. Even if I eat meat, I am not sure." After hearing this, Feng Qingxiu looked at Father Lu, who happened to be looking at her as well. Their eyes met and both smiled bitterly. Theoretically, they should adopt Gangsa, and it's not like they can't afford it. Song Dazu was so dedicated that he sacrificed his life for the country and the people. His parents and wife were all dead, and his only child should not have died of starvation in this age of natural and man-made disasters, leaving this hero with no descendants in his life. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 304. However, Feng Qingxiu didn't want to set a precedent. Once you adopt Gangsa, your home will truly become a shelter and an orphanage. If she has the spirit of dedication and imitates those great female leaders, it seems she should do so. As Lu Jiang's career develops step by step, in 10 or 20 years, she will become a heroic mother and gain both fame and fortune. Taking in these children during the famine years was as much a kindness to them as giving birth to their parents. But she is not that great, she is just an ordinary woman. She has elders at home and younger ones at home, and she also has to take care of Lu Jiang's comrades outside. It would be fine if the space supplies were inexhaustible, but there are only a few. Day. The most important thing is, who in the 10 miles and 8 towns doesn't know whose business? She took in so many children, who wouldn't doubt it? If other people's families can't support their own children, why should she raise so many children? At first, when the names of the two brothers from Guancheng and Guanyu were placed on their household registrations, unlike Zhang He and the others, many people gossiped behind their backs. During the busy farming period, when grinding corn, many people asked Feng Qingshui still doesn't want to take in any children. His relatives have children that they can't feed, or they have children that they plan to abandon or give away after birth. It was said to be a joke, but it was actually a test. Feng Qingshui said to them righteously at that time, "Don't send it to my house. I have enough children. I will have my own child next year. I can't afford to have another child. No one can say that I won't have a second child in the future, a third child, right? Who doesn't know how difficult it is to raise a child in this day and age? Even if someone brings a child to my door, I won't be soft-hearted and take it in. This is the so-called gift of childbirth. Only when your child is young will your child take care of you. There are reasons why I took in the Guancheng brothers. First, the younger one looks like Tianzi. He looks friendly and Tianzi likes him. Second, Guancheng is older. If they can help me with work, my children, from old to young, half-grown, are half the labor force. I don't raise them for nothing. She was also afraid that others would say that by marrying into the Lu family, she would continue the Lu family's tradition of exploiting the hard work of tenant farmers and exploiting the undeveloped labor force in Guancheng. After becoming an apprentice, he is willing to study medicine with me and wants to repay the kindness of our production team for taking him in. Because both Guancheng and Guanyu have food rations and can take care of themselves, the neighbors and villagers know that it is not difficult for Feng Qingshui to feed them. The matter of adopting the two brothers from Guancheng and Guanyu was just confused. Later, someone really planned to quietly put their newly born child at their doorstep. Before they could put it down, Wang Jiao happened to come to play with him and saw him. Wang Jiao was sharp-tongued and arrogant. She cursed loudly, and the other party hugged the child and left in despair. Looking back, Wang Jiao scolded her, saying that she was blind and good-hearted, which caused trouble in the future. From then on, Feng Qingshui took a warning. Feng Qingshui told Song Lao's Huan about this matter, "Uncle Song, please forgive me for my difficulty." Song Lao's Huan blinked his old eyes and said sadly, "Even you don't want to keep the jar." Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 305. Feng Qingshui took a deep breath, and then slowly exhaled. Sad, yet ridiculous. It's sad that no one can take care of him after becoming a martyr, and it's funny that a child who can't be taken care of by a production team comes to seek his own support. Uncle Song, it's not that I don't want to, but that I can't. I have no choice. Feng Qingshui looked helpless. With my wife and I sending money and food stamps, your entire production brigade cannot feed a child of a martyr. How can I support him on my own? I have an elder in my family, 5 children in my family, and 6 children next year. I believe you know what kind of life we live in the countryside. Song Lao's Huan was not stupid, and of course he heard the irony in Feng Qingshui's words. I can't help it. He muttered to himself, repeating it again and again. Feng Qingshui raised her eyebrows. Yeah, you had no choice but to send the child over. The entire production team was like a hands-off shopkeeper, but I couldn't adopt him. Did you know? Send the child 10 yuan. The money and 10 kilograms of food stamps were all squeezed out from our family and from my wife's teeth. We just felt that without Comrade Song Dazu's salary, our family's life would be difficult, so we did our best. The kindness you have shown us and the children you sent has exceeded our expectations. Grit your teeth and be ruthless, but you can't let go of your mouth. Once you let go, there will be endless troubles. Song Lao's Huan looked at the vat in his arms and burst into tears. I also know that you are in trouble, but I really can't help it. If there is something wrong with this child, no one in our production team can bear this responsibility. You and the entire production team can't afford it, can I? Feng Qingxiu finally showed a hint of sullenness on her face. If pity for the child had prevailed before, now it was mostly anger. She couldn't help raising her voice and asked, raising a child is not something that can be solved simply by having enough food and clothing. What about education? What should I do if I get sick? What should I do if there is an accident? There is a lack of medical care in the countryside. There are countless children who have died in infancy. Uncle Song, I believe you know very well. If you really knew, then you should not send your children to me. I really cannot afford the consequences of their children getting sick or having accidents in the future. As a result of, she is soft-hearted and can't help but lend a helping hand when she sees the poor people. However, the premise of being kind is that you must ensure the safety of yourself and your family. You cannot cause unnecessary trouble to yourself and your family just because of a little kindness, such as adopting Gangzi. Children are innocent, she knows very well, but adults' thoughts are not that simple. Song Lao's Huan was immediately dumbfounded. He had never thought of the possible outcome that Feng Qingxiu said. I didn't expect this. Father Lu interjected, Brother Song, don't you have an orphanage in your local area? Why didn't your production team report the child to the local government when the child has no father or mother? After the child becomes a martyr, the country will not let it go. To be honest, when you send your children, you should be mentally prepared to be rejected by us. Your life is not easy, and our life is also difficult. Hearing the word difficult, Song Lashuan's eyes turned to the table. The white flour dumplings in the bowl, the furniture in the room, and the well-dressed people all looked like they were living a difficult life. Today is the winter solstice. Brother, you just said that after eating such a meal of dumplings, our whole family will have to live frugally for a while. Father Lu dealt with Song Lashuan's ideas lightly and deftly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 306. At this time, Lu Tianjun and Guan Cheng came in one after another. The former was holding a bowl of dumplings, and the latter was holding a bowl of porridge. There was white mist rising from the two bowls, and there was a fragrance. Father Lu greeted, Brother Song, eat first. When we are full, we can talk about the children. Song Lao's Huan did not refuse this time. He took the chopsticks from Feng Qingxiu, ate a dumpling, and fed the pot with a sip of porridge. I don't know whether Gangzi has never seen dumplings or eaten dumplings. Anyway, his attention is all on the fragrant and glutinous white porridge. He doesn't even look at the dumplings. He drinks the porridge and smashes his mouth. The dumplings stuffed with mutton and cabbage are so fragrant. They have a thin skin and large fillings, and are full of oil and water. Song Lao's Huan, who has not tasted meat for several years, can still hold on at first. After one dumpling, he can no longer resist the glutton in his stomach. I ate all the dumplings in a short time, drank all the dumpling soup at the bottom of the bowl, and burped at the right moment. A bowl of porridge also made Gu Ziyi full, and his eyes finally had some brightness. Feng Qingxiu's heart softened, and she asked her sister to bring him a fruit candy. The little guy's eyes narrowed with joy, and he finally uttered his first words after arriving at Lu's house, it's so sweet. Song Lao's Huan seemed to see a glimmer of hope and looked at Feng Qingxiu expectantly, the tank is very well behaved, not naughty at all. I know Feng Qingxiu felt pity for this child who had no father or mother. She could afford to raise him, but this situation could not be solved by raising him. She could not solve the consequences of this incident at all. It seemed unrealistic to ask Song Lao's Huan to take Gangzi back. Why don't you let me report it to the troops? Song Dazu is a martyr, and the country must have something to say. Even if it follows the rules and regulations, it can properly arrange Gangzi's life. Father Lu's eyes flashed with appreciation. Song Lao's Huan was stunned for a moment. Tell the troops? No, no. When he spoke, he waved his hands hurriedly and quickly. Why not? Feng Qingxiu asked. Song Lao's Huan said sheepishly, if the cadres of the army knew that our production brigade could not even feed a child, they would definitely not have a good impression of our production brigade. We dare not send our children to the orphanage in the city, either. For this reason, I am afraid that the cadres above will blame us and think that we can't even handle small things well. Feng Qingxiu said angrily, so you understand in your heart. Song Lao's Huan frowned and said nothing. Then what should we do? Song Lao's Huan was really at a loss. Feng Qingxiu said sternly, there are two ways. One is to take it back, and we will still send 10 yuan and 10 pounds of food stamps every month. Your production team will be responsible for the child's life, death, and future. The other is to show it in front of our production team. The party secretary issued a certificate and temporarily placed the child in our production brigade. There is a group of orphans living alone in our production brigade. They are all children without a father and a mother. If I come forward, they will not mind multiple children. They will wait until they are received from the army. After replying, the child's future will be arranged based on the army's reply. Gangzi is an orphan of a martyr, so the state should step in. We cannot let our children grow up saying that their father died for the country, but the country does not care about his life or death. Song Lao's Huan sent the jar out and had no intention of taking it back at first. After being silent for a long time, he finally said, just choose the second way. This kid will die if he goes back, but he can still live if he stays. Feng Qingxiu immediately asked Guancheng to invite Wang Zhenqiu. The heroine has space and a space of materials. She is already the biggest golden finger. We don't have to wait for a long time. In addition to the food supplies that were recorded in detail in the space, there were also supplies that were sold after selling jewelry and continued to be bought. However, they were not recorded in detail, and it was just inconvenient to take them out. Even if the space could be upgraded to grow things, it was still inconvenient to take them out, and it was still useless. Wow! Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 307. Regarding this matter, Wang Zhenqiu had already listened to Guancheng's detailed description on the way here. So, as soon as he entered the door, he complained, Shui, you are really good at finding trouble for me. The land of our production brigade is there, and there are numerous harvests all year round. In recent years, the public grain standard has been much higher than before, and grain production has decreased. If you have one more person, you will need to share one more ration. Today you leave one, and someone else delivers one tomorrow. How can I protect the food rations of my fellow villagers? Once this happens, it will be endless, and everyone wants to do it. Send the child. He didn't believe it. An entire production team couldn't afford to raise one child. Which production brigade does not have children who eat hundreds of meals? There are several in the Wanglu brigade. Your family will give one, my family will give one, and the production team will give some rations. They will grow up after working together. When they grow up, they will still remember the kindness of their fathers and fellow villagers. The current situation is obviously that Song Lao's Huan and his production team do not want to raise Gangzi. Like Feng Qingxiu, he thought that Tank's name was Gangzi. Although Gangzi and Tank had the same pronunciation, they had different meanings. Feng Qingxiu couldn't help but smile bitterly. She just understood that, so she didn't dare to adopt poor Gangzi. She was afraid that the news would spread. Someone would send a child to her today, but she would open the door tomorrow and find an abandoned baby at her feet. There are many abandoned babies in the countryside, and many of them are drowned alive if they are not willing to feed them. Of course, those who drowned were all baby girls. Lu's father said to Wang Zhenqiu ashamedly, "It's all Ajiang's fault. It makes Xiaoxiu deal with him. No matter what you do, it's a disgrace on both sides. You might even complain in vain in the future." He originally wanted to say neither left nor right, but when the words came to his mouth, he suddenly realized that left and right were sensitive words, so he immediately changed his words. Song Lao's Huan quickly waved his hand, "I don't complain. As long as the jar can have a way out, I won't complain about anything. In this age, not dying of hunger is a good thing, and the jar will definitely not complain." Feng Qingxiu didn't have a good impression of him, so she met her uncle's eyes and said seriously, "Uncle, I will go to the city tomorrow to find out how the country arranges for the orphans of martyrs, and then contact Ajiang's army to ask what they mean. Gangxi and Jianghe area are different. If we are not careful, we all have to bear the responsibility." Wang Zhenqiu nodded, "I remember that there was an orphanage in the city that cared for the orphans of martyrs. It existed before liberation. It was one of the centers established by Mrs. Sun back then. It took in many war orphans and orphans of martyrs." Under his witness, he also wrote a written certificate in his own hand, and Song Lao's Huan took his fingerprint after reading it. At this time, he and Feng Qingxiu realized that this vat was not the other person's. There was nothing else in the certificate. It was just to temporarily store the jar in Wanglu Brigade, waiting for a clear reply from the army before properly placing it. The most important thing is that if an accident occurs, it has nothing to do with Wanglu Brigade and Feng Qingxiu. After flicking the certificate, Wang Zhenqiu said, "The content is the same as when I wrote the certificate for the oil bottle." Feng Qingxiu was not in the mood to ask why the oil bottle needed to write a certificate now. She kept the certificate and asked Guancheng to find Zhanghe and Zhang area, tell them the problem at hand, and ask them to take Gangxi into custody for a while. Zhanghe agreed immediately, "Don't worry, Aunt Chue, Jar won't be hungry in our place. Whatever we eat, we will give it to him." They were originally a group of homeless orphans, so they naturally sympathized with the tank. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 308. Zhang area had no objection. They had received goodwill from Feng Qingxiu, Chen Ming, and others, and they were willing to pass on this goodwill. She squatted in front of the tank and said softly, "Tangzi, can you go home with your sister?" Tank's eyes looked at Feng Qingxiu. A child's heart is actually very sensitive. He knows who is good to him and who is not good to him. Although Feng Qingxiu says she doesn't support him, he can feel the care from Feng Qingxiu. That candy is very sweet. Feng Qingxiu touched the top of Tanzi's head and said, "Tuanzi will go back with my sister first, and I will visit you tomorrow, okay?" "Okay." Tang Zi took the initiative to put his little hand on Zhang Aria's stretched out hand. Before Zhang He and Zhang Aria arrived, Song Lao's Huan had already gone to the toilet several times. The dumplings were so oily that his stomach couldn't bear them. Now that the matter with the tank was settled, he was afraid that Feng Qingxiu would regret it. After handing Song Dazu's Medal of Honor and other relics to Feng Qingxiu, he left without stopping. As for having diarrhea several times on the way back, Feng Qingxiu and others, it's unknown. Before Zhang He and Zhang Aria took away the tank, Feng Qingxiu found an old cotton jacket, old cotton trousers and a pair of old cotton shoes that she had bought for her sister at the second-hand counter, and put them on Tutan first, replacing his thin and tattered clothes. Taking advantage of the fine weather, she went to the city with Guancheng Lu Tianjun early the next morning to find the troops stationed there. Of course, the local troops have nothing to do with Lu Jiang's troops, but they have military telephones and dedicated lines. Telegraphs are simple, but it is difficult to fully describe the whole thing. It takes too long to write a letter and wait for a reply. Feng Qingxiu is worried that during the waiting time, an abandoned baby of unknown origin will appear at her door or Zhang He's door. After explaining her purpose to the local troops, she was immediately allowed to borrow a military phone. When Lu Zhang left, he left the army's phone number with his wife, telling her that she could call in case of emergency, which was faster and more convenient than telegraphing. After dialing the phone, Feng Qingxiu first explained her identity, and then said she was looking for Zhao Yang. Zhao Yang is Lu Jiang's immediate boss, so it is more appropriate to find him than Lu Jiang. Comrade Qingxiu, did you make this call because something happened at home? The person who answered the phone was actually Mr. Ye. His smiling voice rang on the other end of the phone. Xiao Zhao is on a mission. If you need anything, please call me directly, tell me. Feng Qingxiu was stunned for a moment, then overjoyed. Hello, Mr. Ye, now I have encountered a difficult matter and I would like to ask for the opinion of the troops. Feng Qingxiu told him about the jar in detail, and finally sighed. Although there are many children at home, the 4-year-old child cannot eat more than a few mouthfuls of food. We can feed him even if we save a little, but we are afraid that this will lead to more and more children. We live in the countryside, and there are far more abandoned babies in the countryside than we imagined. Before, some people wanted to leave their children at my door but failed. I can't afford the future of so many children. Besides, Comrade Song Dazu sacrificed his life for the country. If the country doesn't say anything, it will inevitably give birth to bad thoughts when the children grow up. A trace of anger flashed in Mr. Ye's eyes, not because he was angry with Feng Qingxiu, but because he was angry at what Gongzi did in his hometown. I understand, Qingxiu. Commander Ye thought for a while. I will leave the tank with you first, and I will send you money and food stamps immediately. After I discuss a good solution with the army, I will arrange the tank's life. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 309. Commander Ye understood Feng Qingxiu's worries very well, because he had seen this happen. But that happened before liberation. The wife of an old comrade in arms had been separated from her husband for a long time and had no children, so she took in 2 orphans of martyrs at home. It was like opening a floodgate, and 1 or 2 orphans appeared at the door of her house from time to time. If she took them in, she couldn't afford to support them. If she didn't take them in, outsiders would say she was hypocritical. For those children, she was reluctant to eat and wear, and the final result was that she worked herself to death. Some of the orphans she took in blamed her for not bringing them a good life, and blamed her for dying early, so they had to find another family. Good boy, you and Lu Jiang's kindness has resulted in this. We didn't do our job well. I'm so sorry. Commander Ye thought of the past at his old comrade's home and couldn't help but say, don't worry. Comrade Song Dazu died. The jar is the country's responsibility and will not make things difficult for you. I know how many children you have in your family. I'll ask someone to contact your local government. There should be a welfare agency for orphans of martyrs. If they don't accept them, I'll contact the soldiers in our military region. Feng Qingxiu said puzzledly. What does it have to do with soldiers? Commander Ye's voice suddenly dropped. After long-term battles in the midst of gunfire and rain of bullets, many soldiers in our military region have lost their fertility due to injuries, so they are willing to adopt the children of their comrades, and some soldiers have already done so. After thinking about it, I think this is the best way, which is more trustworthy than the welfare home and is also good for the development of the children. Maybe you can ask for their opinions. If no one adopts the pot, Contact your local welfare home. His wife followed the army to fight east and west, and lost her child, and has since lost her fertility. Now the 5 children under her knees are war orphans and martyrs' orphans adopted by them. I'm sorry to worry you, Feng Qingxiu felt very ashamed. If I wasn't useless, you wouldn't have to worry so much. In fact, she really couldn't afford to raise the pot, but she didn't dare to face the subsequent troubles. Division Commander Ye smiled heartily. Don't say such polite words. I should be grateful to you for coming to the army. I don't want to wait for my children to grow up and tell others, my father sacrificed his life for the country, my mother died, and I became a ball, kicked around by others. I have to call people's attention to this aspect. There must be many children like Gangzi. I can't let my soldiers fight on the front line, and the old and young at home can't be properly settled. If I knew that my children would be homeless like Gangzi one day, I would never be willing to die. When something like Gangzi happened, the army's attitude must be shown. Division Commander Ye didn't ask Feng Qingxiu to wait for a long time. After a few days, a senior soldier from the army came to inform Feng Qingxiu to answer the phone the next day. Regarding Gangzi, Division Commander Ye gave the best answer. There was a couple in their army who were willing to adopt Gangzi. The man was Cao Hui and the woman was Wang Xinru. One was a soldier and the other was a battlefield doctor. Wang Xinru carried Cao Hui out of the dead. Wang Xinru blocked a bullet for him and was shot in the abdomen, which made him lose his fertility. When they got married, Cao Hui said that he would adopt 2 children if he had the chance. When Commander Ye talked about Gangzi, Cao Hui and Wang Xinru took the lead in expressing their willingness to adopt Gangzi. One was to fulfill their parents' dream, and the other was to solve the worries of Lu Zhang and Feng Qingxiu. Cao Hui and Lu Zhang fought side by side, and Wang Xinru and Guo Xiuying were good friends. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 310. However, Cao Hui and Wang Xinru are inseparable now. Each has their own tasks and will go to the battlefield soon. They have no old people at home to help them take care of their children, so they want to foster the jar in the Wanglu Brigade and send it to them on a monthly basis in the future. Feng Qingxiu doesn't need to pay for the money to send things in life. The salary of the 2 soldiers can completely support the family. They didn't mention that she was being fostered in the Lu family, but they knew the specific situation and couldn't bear to cause trouble to Feng Qingxiu. Anyway, whether she lives in the Lu family or with those orphans, Feng Qingxiu will definitely take good care of the jar. They also gave the jar a name, Songgang. They said that they named the tank Songgang to respect the sacrifice of comrade Song Dazu. In the future, when the tank gets older and lives with them, if you are worried that the different surnames of the father and son will attract strange eyes and inquiries from outsiders, then you can ask the tank at that time. If he agrees, he can change his name to Cao Songgang. Songgang's incident is a microcosm. After arranging him, Mr. Ye has accumulated some experience in how to arrange the orphans of martyrs in the future. Feng Qingxiu breathed a sigh of relief. For Songgang, this was the best arrangement. She took Songgang to her home to live with her 4 nephews. On the way home, she said to the people she met, "This child is called Songgang. Jiang's comrades died and the child has no home. He was adopted by a childless comrade in Jiang's army and is now fostered in our home. We give him money, tickets, and things every month, and we will take the child back when they get off the battlefield." After saying that, she said half-truthfully, "I have enough children in my family, and life is difficult. I will not adopt orphans casually. If anyone sends a child who does not want to feed me at my door, I will turn around and hand it over to my uncle. Send him to an orphanage. It's not my child anyway, my parents don't care about their child's life or death, so I don't feel guilty." Speaking of which, the Lu family and Zhang He were all at peace. Feng Qingxiu made her attitude clear, and Zhang He and the others were just a group of children who could barely support themselves. Even if the children were thrown at Zhang He's door, they ignored them and no one blamed them. Song Gang didn't like to talk much, but he was very attached to Feng Qingxiu, following her around every day. He had the deepest and best impression of Feng Qingxiu. While waiting for the army's reply, Feng Qingxiu would visit Zhang He, the others and him every night, and give him a hot bath. Now she takes care of him again. Needless to mention the intimacy. He gets along very well with the Lu family children. They are all children without a father and a mother, and they will not exclude the new Song Gang. Feng Qingyun used to be the youngest, but now there is a younger Song Gang. Feng Qingyun immediately looks like a sister. She takes good care of Song Gang in terms of food, clothing, housing, and transportation. Although Song Gang, like the Lu family brothers and the Guan family brothers, all call her Yun based on their seniority. And just 2 days after Song moved to the Lu family, it started to snow heavily outside. The storm continued all day and all night. Wang Zhenqiu arranged for people to sweep the snow on the cow sheet in the snow to prevent the roof from collapsing. He also cleaned the thatched roof of a group of children in Jianghe. Zhang area quickly sent hot water to them. Even at a young age, children always repay kindness. Lu Tianjun and Guancheng were sweeping the snow in their yard, shoveling the snow into the corners, leaving a path for the main room, the east and west side rooms, and the kitchen. But not long after, another layer of snow fell. Lu Tianzi, Guan Yu, Feng Qingyun, Song Gang, holding a small broom, followed behind the two brothers, pretending to be sweeping the newly fallen snow, showing a lively scene. Updated 6 chapters today, / left parenthesis circumflex o circumflex right parenthesis / tilde.